Tonight on Bridge City News, thousands crowded into a Toronto park yesterday, ignoring social distancing rules on a warm spring day. But it was a different story today after the city threatened to issue $1,000 tickets. As Alberta begins to lift COVID-19 restrictions, local churches are starting to prepare for a gradual return to in-person gatherings. And despite the limitations imposed by COVID-19, Christian leaders say there has been a remarkable response to an outreach called Go 2020.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Paul Arthur.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. With Alberta now removing some restrictions to reopen the economy, restrictions for places of worship have also been partially lifted. While there hasn't been a lot of church reopenings locally just yet, churches are preparing to gradually do so. We spoke with Kelly Stickle, lead pastor with My Victory Churches.
We are going to be opening sooner, smaller, and safer. And what I mean by that is we're going to be opening with volunteers only in the month of June. And we're going to be taking that 50 number, inviting staff and volunteers in and training them in particular on how to manage the public when they do come in and the restrictions get lifted a little bit more. We've actually encouraged our small groups to do house churches on Sunday morning. So gather with their small group and watch the service together in person if possible. It's a big part of our services, and most churches' services is congregational singing. So that restriction has been really difficult. We've talked numerous times with the Premier and with Dr. Hinshaw on that restriction in particular. And we've been asking for things like, is it possible for us to sing with masks on and different things like that? And they are doing some research right now as we speak into that and seeing if they can ease up a little bit on some of those restrictions. And then in July, we're hoping that when if phase two opens up in sometime in mid to late June, then we're hoping that the numbers for gathering will increase as well, and that will enable us to do larger services, and then we'll have to do multiple services, whatever that is. But we really are excited about getting back together in a building with people.
Lethbridge Police have charged 2 people after pulling over a couple of vehicles this weekend, clocked driving at 107 kilometers per hour down Mayor McGrath Drive. On top of the tickets, both vehicles were towed away. Police say they have heard concerns from residents about racing and stunting in recent weeks, and they will continue to target unsafe drivers. Police Chief Scott Wood says racing has increased since the COVID-19 pandemic began. Manitoba says there are no more COVID-19 cases left in its hospitals. Yesterday's update from the province said the last remaining case in Friday's report had left hospital. The total number of lab-confirmed positive and probable cases that have been recorded in Manitoba remained unchanged yesterday from the day before at 292. The number of deaths due to COVID-19 in Manitoba remains at only 7. BC's top doctor says the province has enough public health teams doing contact tracing, but strongly encourages the federal government to help ensure international travelers follow quarantine plans.
We've had over 18,000 people that have presented their self-isolation plans and have had contact with our teams to make sure that they are following their plans and that they have what they need to be able to safely self-isolate when they've come back into BC from outside the country. To me, that is going to be an absolutely critical thing if and when we open up our borders, particularly with the United States. We need to have meticulous follow-up of people who are coming across our borders to make sure that they isolate when they get here and that if they have symptoms, they are not passing it on to anybody else here in BC. So that's an area that I think we need to beef up, and we'll be talking, of course, with our federal counterparts about how to do that.
BC reported only 10 new cases of COVID-19 yesterday, along with 2 more deaths, amounting to a total of 159 fatalities. It was a very different scene at a Toronto park today after thousands of mainly young people descended on the green space yesterday, flouting pandemic social distancing rules, with many consuming alcohol as well. After a scolding from Premier Doug Ford and warnings of $1,000 fines, as well as increased police presence today, Trinity Bellwoods Park was only sparsely attended. Millions of Californians are marking this weekend's Memorial Day holiday with some excitement and anxiety after restrictions to control the spread of coronavirus were eased across much of the state.
Right now we're in active recreation only, which means if you come to the beach, we don't allow any sunbathing. You can't lay out on the beach. You have to be engaged in walking, running, swimming, surfing, anything where you're moving.
What we're really asking is that people come down here with a plan to be active. And we understand that there will be times when a person might sit down on a towel to rest for a minute after being in the water, but surfing and water sports and those types of things is what we're asking for. What we're asking people not to do is to plan on coming down with their cooler and their Easy Up and plan on staying all day just sitting around sunbathing. Essentially what we're asking is for people to be cooperative. At this point, everyone pretty much knows what's going on as far as social distancing. It's everybody's own personal responsibility to follow social distancing rules.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke out strongly in his own defense today as he arrived at court for the start of his corruption trial, claiming he is the victim of a deep state-type conspiracy by media, police, prosecutors, and judges trying to oust him. He is accused of accepting lavish gifts and offering to grant favors to media moguls in exchange for favorable coverage of him and his family. Netanyahu did not speak during the one-hour session and just stood briefly at one point to confirm he understood the charges. Legal analysts expect the case to last several years. Go 2020 is a special edition of Global Outreach Day, which has been taking place on the last Saturday of May since 2012, with Christian believers worldwide sharing the good news. Despite the limitations of COVID-19, this international outreach has seen a remarkable response. Peter Wooding with the Global News Alliance explains.
Go 2020, usually known as Global Outreach Day, is on a mission to mobilize 100 million believers across the world to reach 1 billion people with the gospel throughout the month of May. And in the midst of COVID-19, Go 2020's Dave Gibson believes this is a historic moment to reach people with the hope of Christ during such uncertain times.
This is the opportunity of a millennium. There's never been as many people on planet Earth. Never been as many people who are fearful and without hope, searching for answers. And this is a kairos moment for the church to rise up. It's a simple prayer, care, share strategy. We can pray for people. We care for them. We reach out to our neighbors, provide groceries, reach out to those who are hurting, pray for healing. And prayer, care, and then share, lovingly and appropriately sharing the good news of Jesus. So we feel like it's enhanced the opportunities for the gospel rather than diminished it.
And that openness to the gospel has been clearly evident throughout this month. One Go 2020 team in Dallas, Texas, was at a family gathering for Mother's Day when 7 family members surrendered their lives to Christ.
Lord, I know I'm here, but I thank you for your son. I'm ready to follow you and give you my life.
As of today, you are born again.
Another team in Dallas encountered 2 young ladies that were sitting outside their apartment when they accepted Christ into their lives.
Thank you for having them come over here and talk to me today, where I wouldn't be here. Lord, and I also thank you for waking me up and me and my kids up this morning.
This campaign will conclude at the end of May when the Palau Association will be hosting an online outreach event called Stories of Hope. Evangelist Andrew Palau.
Go 2020, the Global Outreach Day, and all of us are really focusing all the time on this reality that every believer is a witness. And here's another tool right in the hands, right in your very own hand to share and be that witness. But it's in the U.S., people know all these different athletes and coaches, Tony Dungy, Super Bowl winning coach, Monty Williams, coach of the Phoenix Suns NBA team, and some football players and some artists and little worship, and then I'll share the gospel. So it's very simple, but I think it's going to be very fruitful and powerful and very personal that you can grab hold of it.
And Gibson concluded by sharing the phenomenal response they've seen to this year's campaign is a direct result of the most united prayer effort he's ever encountered.
All the prayer movements have come together. Over 200,000 people have been fasting and praying for revival and awakening for 40 days leading into Global Outreach Day. In all of my years of ministry, Peter, I've never seen this much united prayer.
And recapping one of our top news stories, Lethbridge Police have charged 2 people after clocking the vehicles driving at 107 kilometers per hour down Mayor McGrath Drive. Police are warning that they will be targeting unsafe drivers. And a look at weekend weather. What a beautiful day it was today. We'll have a few clouds overnight with a low of 7. Then tomorrow, a mix of sun and cloud with a west wind gusting from 30 to 50 and a high of 20 degrees. The COVID-19 pandemic has hit global financial markets very hard, and many are wondering what will happen to their investments and pensions. Financial advisor Aaron Rustin joins us next to discuss what money may or may not have been lost during this pandemic. That interview is straight ahead.